I baked my grandson's favorite cookies for his school fundraiser. My daughter-in-law threw them away, saying they looked too old-fashioned. That night, I handed my grandson a note explaining what was in the envelope he was holding. I'm a 67-year-old woman living just outside of Kansas City, Missouri. I've lived in the same house for over 40 years. I raised my son Aaron here. My husband passed a decade ago, and since then, my days have been pretty quiet. I keep busy with church, gardening, and the occasional bridge night. But what really keeps me going is my grandson, Mason. Mason's 10. Smart as a whip. Kind, too. Always offering to help carry groceries or open doors. He's the kind of boy who still believes in thank you notes and hugs. And for whatever reason, he and I have always had this special bond. I think part of it is the baking. Ever since he was 3, he sat on my kitchen stool while I made cookies from scratch. He always wanted to help. Now he knows how to crack an egg and stir batter without spilling a drop. His favorite are my peanut butter oatmeal cookies. Nothing fancy. No colored sprinkles or shaped frosting. Just soft, warm, chewy cookies that smell like home. I got the recipe from my own mother, and I passed it down to Aaron when he was a kid, though he never had much interest in the kitchen. Aaron married Claire about 6 years ago. She's put together. One of those women who always has her makeup done and wears workout clothes like she just came from Pilates, even if she didn't. From the beginning, Claire made it clear that she was building a modern family. Clean lines, clean eating, no sugar, no clutter. I tried to stay in my lane. I never told her how to raise Mason. I always asked permission before giving him anything sweet. I stayed polite, even when she made backhanded comments about my house being quaint or my casseroles being so Midwestern. But last month, Mason called me on a Sunday night, all excited. He told me his school was doing a fundraiser bake sale to help pay for new sports equipment, and each family could donate baked goods. He said, "Grandma, can you make your cookies? The real ones? I want to bring something I picked." I told him I'd be honored. I spent all Thursday baking. Made 4 dozen cookies, perfect ones. They came out soft and golden, with just a little crisp on the edges. I packed them carefully in a bakery-style white box, separating each layer with wax paper. Tied it with a ribbon I had saved from Mason's last birthday. I dropped them off Friday morning at Aaron and Claire's house. Claire answered the door. She didn't even open the screen. Just stood there with her arms crossed. "Oh," she said, eyeing the box. "You made these?" I said, "Yes, Mason asked me to. I made extra, so the teachers could have some too." She took the box like it was something she didn't want to touch. "Well, thanks. I'll see if we can use them." That should have been my warning right there. No thank you. No warmth. Just that cool, empty smile she always gives me when Aaron isn't around. I went home.
Tried not to let it eat at me.
Told myself maybe I was overthinking it. But that night, Mason called me. His voice was low, kind of embarrassed. "Grandma," he said, "Mom threw your cookies away." I thought I'd misheard. She what? She said they looked too old-fashioned. She said people want stuff that looks good on Instagram. She bought cupcakes from that place downtown instead. I couldn't speak for a second. My face got hot and then my eyes started burning. Mason kept talking. "I told her I wanted your cookies. I told her they were mine for the fundraiser. She said she knew best." That broke something in me. Not because of the cookies, but because she didn't just toss them. She tossed Mason's choice.
She tossed me.
Like I wasn't part of this family. Like what Mason and I share doesn't matter. I didn't argue. I told Mason, "It's okay, sweetheart. Thank you for telling me." But after I hung up, I sat in my kitchen and stared at the counter where those cookies had cooled just hours before. I felt this deep, aching hurt. A kind of rejection that doesn't come from strangers. It only comes from family. From people who should know better. That night, I wrote Mason a note. I told him about how I made those same cookies for his dad when he was a boy. How love doesn't need to be trendy to be real. I told him I was proud of him for standing up. I slipped $100 in the envelope with a line at the end, "This is your cookie fund. for when you want to bake for someone who won't throw it away. The next time I saw him, I waited until Claire was out back watering her herb garden. I handed Mason the envelope and said, "Open it when you're alone." That night, he called me again. He was quiet for a moment, then he said, "Grandma, I want to learn to bake." "For real?" I said, "Whenever you're ready, I'm here." But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Claire didn't just throw out some cookies. She threw out a connection, a memory, a message of love. She did it for the sake of appearances. And now I'm planning something that'll show her what real value looks like. The next week, Mason started coming over every Saturday morning. At first, it was just for a few hours. I showed him how to measure flour properly, how to cream butter and sugar. He was so focused, careful, curious, and always asking the right questions. I could see the pride building in him. And I was proud too. But I also knew we were on borrowed time. Claire doesn't like anything she can't control. The third Saturday, she sent a text to Aaron while Mason was still here. I heard his phone buzz, and he frowned as he read it. He looked at me and said, "Claire's wondering how long Mason's going to be baking every weekend." I just said, "As long as he wants to." Aaron sighed. "You know how she is."
Yes, I did.
But I also knew Mason needed this. He wasn't just learning how to bake. He was learning how to make something of his own. Something his mother couldn't dismiss. And he was good at it. The following weekend, he brought his first batch of cookies back home with him. He had packed them himself in a clean white tin, with a little index card he'd written on. "Made by Mason." Claire didn't say a word to me when I dropped him off. But later that night, Mason called, frustrated. She didn't even try them. Said she doesn't eat that stuff. He was quiet for a bit, then asked, "Why doesn't she like you?" I couldn't answer that. Not in a way that wouldn't poison his heart. So I just said, some people don't understand what they're missing until it's gone. Then things got more tense. A few days later, Aaron stopped by alone. He looked tired. He sat down in my kitchen, same place he used to eat those cookies as a boy, and said, "Claire's upset. She says you're undermining her rules by teaching Mason to bake sweets." I kept my voice calm. He asked me to. I never gave him anything without asking. But I won't apologize for spending time with my grandson. Aaron rubbed his face. "She's talking about switching Mason to a different school. One with stricter food policies. Says he needs structure." I could feel my stomach turn. So now baking with his grandmother is a threat? He didn't answer. Just looked away. That was when I knew Claire wasn't just trying to manage appearances anymore. She wanted to erase me, one quiet visit at a time. The final straw came when Mason entered a school cooking contest in April. He made his own version of our cookies, added a touch of cinnamon, made a little logo on a folded napkin. He didn't win, but he got second place, and the school newsletter printed his photo with a caption, "Future Baker." Claire lost it. Aaron told me she stormed into the principal's office, furious that they had rewarded unhealthy habits. Said the article was damaging to their family image. Family image. That's what I'd become. A blemish on the brand she was building. So I made a choice. I started gathering things. Photos of Aaron baking cookies as a child. Cards he made me for Mother's Day. Notes from Mason. I began documenting every visit Mason made, every recipe we tried, every kind moment we shared. Not to go public, but to protect what mattered. I also contacted a lawyer. Because if Claire was planning to cut me out, I wasn't going quietly. I wasn't going to fight her with anger. I was going to fight her with love Mason could hold in his hands. With traditions she couldn't fake. And with something else, something legal. That part? It's still unfolding. But let's just say she underestimated how far a quaint grandmother can go when someone threatens her place in the family. A month later, Mason stopped coming over. At first, Aaron made excuses. He's busy with school. Soccer season started. Claire's parents are visiting. I didn't push. I just kept baking. Every Saturday morning, I made a fresh batch of cookies and set a place for him at the counter. I couldn't help it. It was like keeping a light on in case he came home. 3 Saturdays passed. Nothing. Then, out of nowhere, I got a letter in the mail. Not a text. Not an email. A printed, formal letter. It was from Claire. She accused me of undermining parental authority and fostering unhealthy habits. She said she was taking appropriate legal measures to limit my access to Mason. It read like it was written by a PR firm, not a mother. The line that hit hardest? Your influence is not in alignment with the values we are instilling in Mason. That was it. I knew then this wasn't just about cookies. It was about control. Erasure. She wanted Mason raised in a glass house she built herself, sterile, polished, curated. And anything real? Anything messy or emotional or meaningful? It didn't fit. I called Aaron. I got the letter, I said. He was quiet. Then he said, I didn't want it to come to this. But Claire thinks it's for the best. I swallowed hard. Do you think it's for the best? More silence. Then, it's complicated. That night, I pulled out the folder I'd been building. Pictures, letters, baking notes in Mason's handwriting, drawings he'd made of us cooking together. I even had screenshots of his text messages, him asking about recipes, thanking me, telling me he loved baking with me. I added one more thing. A copy of a new Living Trust one had signed the week before. See, what Claire didn't know was that the house I live in, the one I paid off with my late husband, it's now held in a trust. And the sole beneficiary of that trust is Mason. Not Aaron. Not Claire. Just Mason. But there was one condition. Mason only inherits if he's allowed continued contact with me. Regular visits until he turns 18. It's all legal. Ironclad. I hadn't told anyone. Not yet. But I was about to. I scheduled a meeting with my lawyer and had a formal letter sent to Claire and Aaron. It included the trust summary and a very clear message. If they continued to restrict Mason's access to me, they were not just breaking hearts, they were forfeiting his future. It was risky. I knew Claire might double down out of pride, but I also knew her love of appearances and the fear of public scrutiny would hold her in check. And then came the real twist. A week later, Mason showed up at my door. By himself. I rode my bike, he said, out of breath. Mom's on a call. Dad said he had a surprise waiting for her. He handed me a note. It was from Aaron, written in his own handwriting.
Mom, I'm sorry.
I should have said something sooner. Mason belongs here just as much as he belongs with us. I'm done pretending this bond doesn't matter. If that's a problem, we need to talk for real this time. I don't know what that meant for their marriage. But I do know that Claire didn't call me after that. She didn't show up screaming. She didn't send another letter. She stayed silent, which, for her, was louder than any threat. But it wasn't over yet, because the next step, that was mine. And I had something planned Claire would never see coming. After that day Mason showed up on his bike, he started coming again, quietly, carefully. Every Saturday morning like before. Only now he was more serious, more focused. It wasn't just fun anymore. It was something he needed. He didn't talk much about what was happening at home, but I didn't press. I could see it on his face. The tired eyes. The way he flinched every time his phone buzzed. Claire wasn't letting this go. But Aaron was different now. He texted me once, just 2 words. Thank you. I knew what that meant. Still, things were tense. I stayed out of their business, but the silence from Claire was louder than anything she'd said before. She wasn't done. I could feel it. Then, about 2 weeks later, I found out Mason's school was hosting a community culture fair. Families were invited to share food, traditions, anything from their heritage. Mason was excited about it. He said he wanted to do something from Grandma's kitchen. I helped him plan a small baking demo, a simple booth where he could hand out samples of our cookies and explain how he learned to bake. We even made a trifold board with pictures of us in the kitchen, old photos of me baking with Aaron as a boy, and the original recipe card from my mother, yellowed with age. Mason titled the booth, 3 Generations of Cookies. The night before the event, Aaron dropped Mason off. I could tell he was nervous. Claire's not thrilled, he said quietly. But I told her he's doing this. He made the board himself. He paused, then added, "She's talking about filing for sole custody." I looked at him dead in the eye.
She won't win.
Not if it comes to that. Aaron didn't argue. We baked late into the night. Mason wanted every detail perfect. We packed the cookies, the tablecloth, even a small wooden stand he made to display the recipe. He was proud, and I was proud of him. But the next morning when we arrived at the school, something felt wrong. Our spot, marked clearly with Mason G. in blue tape, was taken. Another family was setting up a booth with store-bought pastries and glossy signage. Claire's name was on the side. Modern baking, clean sweets for the new family. Mason froze. Claire was there too, wearing one of her perfect outfits, smiling at the principal. She saw us. Didn't wave.
Didn't speak.
Mason looked up at me. She replaced us. I knelt down and said, "Not us, sweetheart. Just the table." I walked straight to the coordinator and explained the situation. How we had signed up, how Mason had prepared everything, how this was his project. The woman looked mortified. Said there must have been a mix-up. Claire stood nearby, pretending to be confused. "I thought no one had claimed the spot," she said lightly. "I didn't see anything listed in the last memo." That was a lie, and we both knew it. But here's the thing. Claire may have stolen our table, but she hadn't stolen our message. The coordinator quickly found us a new spot, closer to the back. Smaller, yes, but still visible. Still ours. Mason sat up quietly, hands shaking a bit. But once the cookies were out and people started stopping by, smiling, tasting, asking questions, he came back to life. By the end of the day, we had a small crowd around the booth, and a line of parents asking if we had extra recipe cards. Claire didn't get that kind of attention. She packed up early and left without saying a word. But I knew this wasn't enough. She'd tried to erase us publicly now. Undermined a child's project to feed her ego. And I had one more move left. What she didn't know was that every single parent who came to our booth, every one of them who asked for a recipe or complimented Mason, I had written down their names. I had photos, testimonials. And with all of that, I was preparing something she couldn't stop, a legacy she couldn't control. One that didn't come from money or looks or polished packaging, but from something much older, much deeper. And when it came out, it would be very public. I spent the next 2 weeks finishing what I'd started. I reached out to the parents who had visited Mason's booth at the school fair. I asked if they'd be willing to write short notes about their experience. Just a sentence or two. What they saw, how Mason carried himself, what they thought of his cookies. Over 24 replied. He was proud of what he made. You could tell he put real work into it. He reminded me of how my grandmother taught me to cook. One of the only booths that felt like it had heart. I compiled every note, every photo, every recipe request into a small printed booklet. I titled it, "Old-Fashioned Isn't Broken, A Grandson's Journey Through Generations." It wasn't flashy, just clean, real, and filled with the kind of truth Claire couldn't erase. I mailed it to the school board, to the principal, to every parent in Mason's grade whose email I had collected over the years from birthday party RSVPs. And I mailed one copy, certified, signature required, to Claire. Inside, I included one more thing, a formal letter from my attorney. It explained the terms of the living trust, how Mason stood to inherit the house, the land, and a substantial savings account, but only if he maintained a regular relationship with me. If any party, namely Claire, interfered, that inheritance would be donated instead to a local baking education nonprofit. The letter included witness documentation, time-stamped visitation logs, and notarized letters of intent signed months ago. Claire had 2 choices. Keep pretending I didn't matter and watch Mason's future slip through her manicured fingers, or finally sit down and shut up. She stayed silent for 4 days. On the 5th, I got a call from Aaron. She wants to talk. We met at a neutral spot, a little diner off 75th and Wernal. Claire looked like a politician in damage control mode. Hair stiff with spray. Expression tight. She didn't say hello. She just said, "You're forcing my hand."
No. Y replía.
"You've been forcing his." She didn't respond. Aaron cleared his throat. "We've talked. Mason's going to keep seeing you." End of discussion. Claire's jaw tightened, but she didn't argue. That was her tell. When she knew she'd lost, she stopped talking. I left that meeting lighter. Not happy. This kind of war doesn't leave you joyful, but calm. Like something heavy had finally been laid down. Weeks passed. Mason kept visiting, and with time he got better. His cookies improved. His questions got sharper. We entered a county fair under his name. He didn't win, but he got a ribbon for Most Promising Youth Baker. Then one Saturday, he handed me a folded sheet of paper. On it was the first draft of a blog he wanted to start. Title: The Cookie Table. Subtitle: Old Recipes, New Hands. He'd written an About Me section where he explained how his grandmother taught him everything she knew, even when others said it didn't matter. I cried when I read it. Claire still doesn't talk to me unless she has to. That's fine. I don't need her love. I don't even need her respect. She can keep her modern kitchen and her perfect house and her spotless image. But she'll never be the one Mason remembers when he smells brown sugar and vanilla warming in the oven. She'll never be the one he calls when his first batch burns, or when he wants to know if adding nutmeg is too much. That's me. I'm the one who stayed. I'm the one who mattered. And in the end, that was the sweetest revenge of all.